Have you ever sworn that you remember something that didn't actually happen? Maybe it had something to do with family or friends. Maybe you just remembered it wrong. Ask anyone else who was there, and they'd be able to tell you if you were right or not. But what happens if one person remembers it the way that you do, but the others don't? Who's right and who's wrong? In 2010, blogger Fiona Broom told the internet of an experience she had at a convention. She found out that a number of other people shared the same memory she did about Nelson Mandela. Broom remembers Mandela passing away in the 1980s during his imprisonment. Broom said, "I thought Nelson Mandela died in prison. I thought I remembered it clearly, complete with news clips of his funeral, the mourning in South Africa, some rioting in cities, and the heartfelt speech by his widow. Then I found out he was still alive." As many of you know, Nelson Mandela died in 2013, not the 1980s. This, plus many other examples such as the Bernstein versus Bernstein debate, has led to a theory of a parallel universe where these details were altered. This has come to be known as the Mandela effect. I've also heard of it being referred to as a glitch in the Matrix. So with that being said, we supposedly live in the universe where Nelson Mandela didn't pass away until 2013, and the books are called the Bernstein Bears. I remember Nelson Mandela passing away in 2013 specifically because a lot of people mistook him for Morgan Freeman. I can't give my input on the Bernstein thing because I was never a fan. Before I go on, I'd like to show you more examples. If you're American, how many states does the country have? Many remember there being 51 or 52 states while there are actually only 50. How do you spell dilemma? Like this? Or like this? Well, this is the right one. Here's one that got me. There's this well-known video called Tank Man. I remember seeing this on the internet somewhere, and I very vividly remember the man being crushed. In fact, it was disgusting. Apparently this didn't actually happen. As you can see, the man is safe. These are some comments about it from MandelaEffect.com. I remember Tank Boy getting run over by the tank at Tiananmen Square. My husband doesn't. We googled it and apparently he didn't get run over. I have a very vivid memory though. I remember seeing a video of it. I remember learning this in 7th grade history. I remember seeing blood on the street after the tank rolled over him and how the backlash nearly caused communism to fall apart in China. They nearly switched to the capitalistic command economy. This is so weird. I very clearly remember the guy being run over by the tank. So why did I, and so many others, remember the man being run over? Well, it is quite possible that this is just a false memory. It's pretty self-explanatory. In psychology, a false memory refers to a memory that is either distorted or completely fabricated, but without the intent to deceive.
So in fact, it's actually quite easy to elicit false memories in the laboratory. This is often done with word list. So people are presented a list of words that they have to recall later on. And often they remember words that were not on the original list, but were associated, similar to words that were on the list. So in fact, they've created a false memory, or memory of a word that wasn't there.
In other words, I was technically lying to anyone I told about the gore-filled Tank Man video, but I did so without even knowing it. I can't say for sure how this false recollection manifested, but if I had to guess, I'd say I probably watched it while distracted and just assumed that it was something violent. Then, memories of other things I've seen online filled the gaps. I do also remember people talking about how terrible the video was. That could have also distorted my memory of it. The same goes for everyone else who remembers the man being ran over. We just assume that that would be the logical outcome to standing in front of a tank. There are also other stories online of people who were killed by a tank, so it's completely possible we got this mixed up. The same basic formula can also be applied to the examples mentioned earlier. It's completely possible that people misunderstood something in the news back when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned. As I said earlier, in 2013, people mistakenly thought Morgan Freeman died instead. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are people out there right now who think Morgan Freeman is dead and can even remember the buzz in the media. In fact, a good amount of people thought that Stan Lee was dead before the rise of the recent Marvel films. Onto the Berenstain Bears issue. Like I said, I was never a fan of these, so I can't give much personal insight. I have seen pictures of books that say Bernstein on the sides, and have even heard people say that there was a correction made with the print. I'm not sure if this is true, but it is possible that this happened and Bernstein just stuck. People probably didn't notice because the change was so minute. Another possibility is simple mispronunciation. These are of course kids' books, so I'm sure that the people reading them weren't 100% concerned with the proper pronunciation of a name. There isn't much difference between Bernstein and Bernstein when said casually. Something similar to this can also be behind the dilemma misspelling. Onto the issue of how many states the US has. Surprisingly, a lot of people can't answer this with confidence. Most think it's 49 or 51 or 52 instead of 50. I read a small article somewhere that explained why this happens pretty well. Basically, our brains are more likely to come up with a less perfect number because it seems more realistic. 50 is just too nice. It's like when you buy something at the store and it comes out completely even. We're more used to having to deal with a messier number. Another thing is the media once again. You hear a lot of buzz about what the 51st state will be. If you saw an article titled something along those lines in your Facebook feed and you tried to recall the number of states later, you might pull up 51 or even 52. A lot of people who remember it as 49 states may just be recalling when that was correct, before Hawaii was a state. The younger ones could have been misinformed as well. Basically, there are a lot of ways that our memories can be distorted. Here's a bit from Elizabeth Loftus, an expert in cognitive psychology.
Many people believe that memory works like a recording device. You just record the information, then you call it up and play it back when you want to answer questions or identify images. But decades of work in psychology has shown that this just isn't true. Our memories are constructive. They're reconstructive. Memory works a little bit more like a Wikipedia page. You can go in there and change it, but so can other people.
So what do you guys think about all this? As always, let me know in the comments below. If you didn't already know, I've got all these social media accounts you can follow if you're bored enough. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Ha ha!